You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. September is here, and on this first Friday of the month, I'm joined by Chris Hall of McNally Robinson Booksellers with his picks in What to Read. Chris, very excited to have you back and happy that it is indeed the first Friday of the month, unlike August.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to September as well.
It's wild to think. I was certainly caught off guard last month while on summer vacation, but now we're getting into the swing of things. September has that effect. And speaking of swing
Mm.
of things, how are things shaping up for the fall at McNally?
Well, things are feeling that much closer to normal. We've got events starting to go, and I can mention a couple of them as we go through with the books. The classroom is starting up, so there's a whole itinerary of classes, whole schedule of classes that you can choose from again, and yeah, it feels good.
I'm sure that it does. I was looking at that community classroom, and like you say, all sorts of classes planned from Lives of Women in the Ancient World to film club to abstract art to even a raptor rendezvous. So, very busy and exciting times over at the Grant Park location.
That's true. It's almost as various as What to Read, one might say.
Ain't that the truth? And a very varied edition of What to Read it is this month. Where would you like to start us off?
We're going to start with, of all things, a graphic novel. This is called Ducks, 2 Years in the Oil Sands, and it's by Kate Beaton. Now, Kate Beaton is a graphic novelist, very well known. She's a big star in that world, and a lot of it for her collection, Hark a Vagrant. But before she was a successful cartoonist, she was Katie Beaton of Cape Breton, and this is her story about heading west to take advantage of Alberta's oil rush. And it's about the dislocation she feels from home, with a lot of other Maritimers. A lot of them do this. The loneliness she feels because she's one of the very few women in a world of oil men. Also, being a human being in such a massive landscape and really colossal mining operations that they're involved in. So I don't read a lot of graphic novels, which you may have guessed, but I'm struck with when I do with what the medium can do that written novels can't. I'm struck by moments of silence, for example, when there are no words in a cell or a series of cells. When a written novel can't do anything literally without words. Or an image of a minuscule human being set against a backdrop of a full sky of northern lights or a landscape full of forest or mining machinery. So if you don't read a lot of graphic novels, it's a great place to discover the strengths of this kind of book. I just find myself pausing more often than I do with a written novel, just to take in what's being presented. It's quite striking.
It's a good distinction you make there, and the fact that silence is so important in a graphic novel. There can be no words on a page or in a cell.
Mhm.
You mentioned how you don't often gravitate towards this particular genre. You spoke to it a little bit, but I'm curious, Chris, this one in particular, what drew you, pun intended, to this one?
Well, I think it was Reputation.
Yeah.
I've read a book by Seth, who's also could be described in very similar terms, and another book by Chris Ware. And it was interviews with Chris Ware that really made me think, wow, some of these graphic novelists are really up to something. And so I read it, and I was struck by exactly the same kinds of things I'm describing here. And so Kate Beaton's Reputation, being very similar, I thought, yeah, I want to give this a try too, and I'm glad I did. I should also mention I was partially motivated because she's going to make an appearance in
Mm.
Winnipeg with us. We have a event scheduled with Kate Beaton, Tuesday, November 8th, 7 p.m. It's at the Art Gallery, so we're going to be selling tickets, but then she will be doing a presentation, graphic novelists often do. So if you want to attend, or if you know somebody you want to attend, spread the news. Go onto our website and find out the details. But yeah, that's very exciting too.
Speaking of great reputations and graphic novelists, David A. Robertson is, well, becoming a very well known name, has had tremendous success, not only for his graphic novels and his series, but also for his writings. He's got a new book out, and it, of course, is on the What to Read list.
Yeah, absolutely. We just had an event with David last week with a next installment of one of those graphic novel series. This is a new book coming in September for adults. It's a more um, straightforward novel, written novel. It's called The Theory of Crows. And I call him David. He's a great friend of the store in Winnipeg. He's in there all the time chatting with us. And so we're very fond of him. But as you say, he's going to another level of popularity. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
he's best known for his writing for children and young adults. He's won the Governor General's Award a couple of times, When We Were Alone and On the Trap Line. So first of all, if the young people in your life aren't familiar with him, then I recommend you put that right. But this new novel, it's for adults, as I say. It's a second novel for adults that he's written. He's also written a memoir called Blackwater, which I believe I came in on the air and talked about a couple of years ago. So this new one is about a relationship between a father and his 16-year-old daughter, and they're going through the normal challenges one does with in such family environments. But tragedy strikes, and they head out onto the land in search of a cabin on the family trap line that they've heard of but never seen. And so it's a novel about two people in particular searching for connection to each other and to family. The novel really plays out the importance, particularly to Indigenous people, of the land in those relationships. It's a really moving, emotional novel. Uh, David is boy, he can do it all. It's quite amazing.
Very true indeed. You mentioned Blackwater. I've got it on the shelf behind me, and yeah, one of those previously recommended picks. Great writer. Just yeah, a new one to certainly add to the list. And
Yeah, and sorry to interrupt. I recommend you come out to again another event we're having
yeah,
September 14th, 7 p.m. That one will be a more standard event in Winnipeg Grant Park. But if you don't know much about David and haven't met him either directly or on stage this way, I really recommend you come in. You'll get a real feeling for who he is and how connected, the connections he makes with people, kids. So it's amazing, but adults too. He's really well worth reading and listening to.
great opportunity there.
Hmm.
Another previously recommended author, if memory serves
Hmm.
correctly,
Yeah.
the latest from Maggie O'Farrell.
Yes, well spotted. I was on air, I guess, a couple of years ago as well for a book called Hamnet. At the time, it was
Mm-hmm.
called Hamnet and Judith. For some reason, different countries and different rights, the paperback came out, and the novel is now called Hamnet.
I was
So, of
going to
course,
ask
Judith.
about that. I didn't want to get too far into it, but I also have a copy of that, and it's Hannah and Judith on that. So I was curious as to anyway. Good. Carry on.
Yeah, some of the mysteries of the book industry that I don't get to know it all, I guess. But anyway, yes, it's called Hamnet now, about the son of William Shakespeare. This new one is called The Marriage Portrait. And in this case, we're going back to the time of the Medicis, and
Mhm.
specifically Lucrezia de Medici, the daughter of Lorenzo, the Grand Duke of Florence. And as a girl, she lives in the sumptuousness of their palace, and she's free to observe. She's a very curious girl, and she works on her artistic interests, a good painter, but her older sister dies just before her wedding to the ruler of Ferrara, and the groom is very quick after that to request Lucrezia's hand instead, and her father is just as quick to accept. So, out of nowhere, at 15, Lucrezia is taken away and must figure out the worlds of adulthood and marriage to a man whose fits of anger leave her fearing the worst and perhaps imagining, perhaps not imagining it. She's trying to figure that out. So, I'll leave the plot description there. But I recommend the book. As you know, I love novels set in history, but this is a really good engagement with a character. Lucrezia is very lifelike and facing the challenges, both normal and abnormal, and both the context of her place in history that are unusual. But yeah, it's one of those great reads.
Yeah, fascinating. And of course, the Medicis themselves are very fascinating. Great patrons of
Yes.
the arts. Music lovers will know all of their contributions throughout,
Mm.
well, the history. So, yeah, certainly a fascinating dive into the life of Lucrezia there. A very different sort of pick next. Fen,
Mhm.
Bog, and Swamp.
Indeed, just words that really make you come alive, don't they? Yes, Fen Bog Swamp, a short history of peatland destruction and its role in the climate crisis. And it is written by Annie Proulx, and Annie Proulx may be a familiar name to people. She was very well known for novels and short stories. Long time ago now, 20 plus years probably, The Shipping News was a big novel, sold lots of copies. And then she also has written others. Close Range, which had the story that was turned into the movie Brokeback Mountain, is probably another one of her
Mm-hmm.
best known ones. But she's also a committed environmentalist. She's written nonfiction. And here in this book, she tells the story behind the wetlands of the world. And as we kind of alluded to with our opening response to the title. These parts of the world are most often thought of as useless and waste. But what we're discovering is they've played a key role in filtering and storing carbon and other toxins that really keep the earth in balance. I knew something of this, and I thought what we were losing was kind of the active filtering that they did, and that wasn't happening as much anymore. But what this book made me realize is what also is happening is we dry out these lands, is they're emitting the methane and other toxic gases that they have been storing for thousands of years. So it's like the problem is doubling when this happens. So it's scary stuff. But in her treatment, we get the interests and storytelling strengths of the novelist. She goes back through historical books and finds descriptions of biodiversity and wonderful historical anecdotes, literally describing lost worlds in a lot of cases. Butterflies in the English fenlands, for example, that are no longer there, and words for nature we've literally lost because we have no use for them. So it's a wonderful kind of experience of storytelling as well as a very important topic.
Yeah, it sounds very sobering as well.
It is, yes.
And when I think carbon storage, I think rainforests, but we can bring things a little bit closer to home, as you know, Fen Bog
Yeah,
Swamp. That is we know that terrain.
and apparently the rainforest dwarfs the rainforest for what the service that it provides the earth that we have really underestimated.
Yeah, very, very important. Chris, I know you always try and bring variety to what to read, but you have exceeded expectations this month, I have to say. We've already had a graphic novel. We were just talking about Fen Bogs and Swamps and the Medicis, and we have a cookbook to close things out. I know you're a big fan of these. Tell us about Dinner in One.
I am a big fan, as you know. Yes, Dinner in One, exceptional and easy one-pan meals, and the reason this comes to the top of the pile is the author, Melissa Clark. She is one of the main contributors of recipes on the New York Times cooking section, and I'm also a big fan of that. And I will literally make anything she puts her name on. It's amazing how successful the recipes are consistently when I try them. So I'm very excited to get 100 of her recipes all in one place. And which dinner time dishwasher, Simon, doesn't like the idea of a one-pan dinner? So this collection, the one pan can be an oven sheet pan, a skillet, an instant pot, a baking dish, even a bowl in the case of one bowl cakes like easy chocolate fudge torte or the ricotta olive oil pound cake. Their recipes for weekdays, busy evenings, as well as splurging on weekends. And oh my gosh, I'm starting to get hungry.
Yeah, you and I both. You mentioned just how big of a deal Melissa Clark is, and I too like opening that New York Times cooking app. They're very straight ahead, and like you say, sheet pans, one pot, one bowl meals or desserts. What a treat in more ways than one.
Absolutely, absolutely. The easier the cleanup, the better the meal.
Yeah, well said. Chris, as always, great to connect with you. All sorts of picks up that you can find at classic107.com. Lovely seeing you, and we'll see you again next month.
Nice seeing you, Simon, again. Thank you.